if you just scanned, your file should be on the desktop. If you're coming back to your file, you may have to retrieve it from your Google Drive. So here I am in my Google Drive. Here's my folders for each class. So I'm going to go to the Photo 1 folder. And then in my folder, I've got my assignment. So this was from group shooting. So I click on that. And then in here, I have an originals folder and a finals folder where I have my files stored. My original scans live here. And then once I've edited and saved them, they'll live there. So I'm going to click on my originals folder. And I should have my files here. So I can either right-click, control-click, or double-click to open the file. To view it larger, make sure I'm choosing the correct file. And then up here is my download. So I'm going to download this file. I'm just going to save it. And go to my Finder. And here's my download. So there it is. So now I'm going to just drag this to the desktop so it's easy to work from. And then from there, I can open this in Photoshop to begin editing. So to then edit the photograph, I'm going to and open Adobe Photoshop. Okay. You can click the little green circle to fill screen. And at any point, if I want to get back to the desktop, I can click on my Finder window to bring up the desktop and choose my files. So I'm going to drag this file to the Photoshop icon. You might get this warning. It's just letting us know our computers are a little old. I can click Don't Show Again. And there's my negative. I can press Command 0 to fill the screen. I can also at any point Command plus to zoom in. If I need to rotate the image, I can do that here. I want to change the mode to grayscale because remember we scanned in color. So I'm going to go to Mode, Grayscale. Don't show again, and discard that color information. Shouldn't change. Sometimes it might have a blue or a purple cast to it. And then the next thing is I'm going to adjust my image size. And this is really, really important. You can see here I scanned it at 3200 resolution, but it's small. It's the size of a negative. So I'm going to uncheck Resample because what I'm actually doing is I am resizing it, but the number of pixels will not change. So I'm maintaining the same number of pixels, I'm just changing the dimensions. So I'm going to change that resolution to 300. That means I'm getting a 9.5 by about 14 3/4 inch image. We print digital images at 300 resolution, so this would give you about, a nice 9 by 15 print. I don't need to change those inches at all. What I'm looking for is resolution. If I left Resample checked, you can see that would change my number of pixels. And so I'm actually getting rid of resolution, and I don't want to do that. So once again, uncheck Resample. Those pixels should stay the same. 300 resolution. And then when I click OK, the image shouldn't change at all. Right? This didn't get smaller or bigger. Right now I'm viewing it at 19%. If I zoom in, this is 100%. So that's how big that image actually is. At any point I can press the space bar and hold it down and drag around my image. And then again, Command 0 to fill the screen once more. What I may want to do is crop the image. So I may have, there's a little bit of a black strip there on the right. You can zoom in to check. It's always important to zoom in. Yeah, and at this zoom level, it actually doesn't show up there. So I'm pretty good. But if I need to crop it, choose the crop tool, and then holding Shift to maintain the correct proportion. So that way I'm not turning it into a square or a different shaped rectangle. And then you'll just press return. If at any point you do something you don't want to do, you can go to Edit, Undo, which is Command Z, and that'll undo the last thing you did. If you press it again, it'll redo that. So if I want to step backward, I would actually press Option Command Z. All right. So the first edits that I'm going to make are with those levels. So I'm going to go to my level adjustment, and here once again is that kind of histogram, just like we saw when scanning. And so I'm going to drag, this is the black, close to that edge. Here's the white. There's a little bit there, but I'm going to bring that here, and I can see what it would look like if I continue to drag it left. I want to make sure that I'm not clipping anything, so I'm not removing any details by making it too bright or too dark. But this is mostly the sky, which I want to be brighter. I'm going to drag that just about here. And I'm kind of watching this area. The other thing that's important is to make sure your screen brightness, if I'm all the way up, it's going to look very bright, brighter than if I printed it out because a piece of paper is not backlit. So I'm actually going to put this about 1/2 to 2/3 brightness to get a better gauge. So I'm going to look at that bottom now here in these shadow areas, making sure that, again, I'm not clipping. There's a little bit of information down there, so I might leave it somewhere around here. And I'm doing this as a level adjustment, so I can delete that or see it without it before and after. And I'm not affecting my original image. I'm not affecting that background layer. The other layer adjustment that I can do, I'm going to go back to my layer adjustment, the little black and white circle, and I'm going to choose brightness and contrast. So again, brightness, that's an overall, everything is brightening. Contrast is about the relationship between white and black. How this is a little bright, this is a little dark. So I'm going to show you how to effectively dodge and burn in Photoshop. Now, there is a dodge and burn tool. However, that is a destructive adjustment, so it means it's going to be affecting the original layer, and I don't want to do that. I want an adjustment that I can remove, just like I've done these, and I'm not affecting that background layer. So let's start just with the brightness and contrast, and I feel like this gets a little dark when that's added. You can see that. That's before, that's after. So clicking on this layer, you see there's the actual adjustment, and this white rectangle is the layer mask. Notice how it pops up here for that adjustment. It's sort of like an invisible sheet of glass that that adjustment lives on. So I'm going to go over here to my colors. I've got white and black. If, say, I was gray, because I'm in, if I press D for default, it goes back to white and black. X switches it. And then I'm going to go to my paintbrush. Again, if I hover over any tool, it'll tell me what it is and the shortcut. So the shortcut for that is B. And then I'm going to go to the brush size. I want my hardness at 0, so it's a very soft circle. And then I can just pick a size. And you'll notice the right bracket on my keyboard makes that tool bigger. Left bracket makes it smaller. Also going to lower my opacity, probably around 30%. And anywhere I paint will paint away that adjustment. And it's subtle, but you'll see over here that I'm erasing that brightness and contrast. I can then turn it off and see, is there anywhere else that I want to take away some of that contrast? Looks good. Now, I can take this one step further. I'm going to go to my background layer. I'm going to add a new level adjustment. And this time I'm going to adjust the levels to get this to look darker. I'm going to darken everything. And I'm only really paying attention to that top part of the little tower. I want that to look good. All right. So again, I can see it before and after. And that looks good. I like that. But obviously everything else is too dark. So again, I'm on that layer mask. I've got my brush set to black. And then I'm going to paint away everything but that tower. And to do this a little bit quicker, I can increase my opacity. And so effectively what I've done is I've burned in this area. And so I can turn that off and on. And you can use any selection tool that you want to select an area. Right now I'm just painting it. And then I may say, you know what, I actually want this to be a little darker. So I switch to white, and now I will paint back in that adjustment. If I want that to be darker, and I want this to be darker. And so, you know, I can, and then if, oh, I like, that's too dark, too dramatic, lower my opacity, switch to black, paint that away, switch to white, and give it a little more. And you can do this for any layer adjustment that I want. So again, before, I can also do that for brightness and contrast. Say I want a little more contrast in those bricks. Go back to my background layer, adjustment, brightness and contrast. Increase my contrast. And maybe increase the brightness a little bit. Kind of do those in tandem with each other. And then again, you know, I might say, don't like how that got too contrasting, so I will black, paint that away. And I can just keep checking what I like. That's before, that's after. Dark. Make my brush smaller to make smaller adjustments. And so if I unclick all of these, this is my starting image. Much better. Checking my brightness also. I'm going to bring that back down. You know, so I might say overall, if I need this brighter again, that's my original level adjustment. Brighten that up a little bit. You know, I may also say like this gets a little too dark. So maybe, you know, and you can make as many level adjustments, brightness and contrast layers as you want, turning them off, turning them on, you know, going back in. You know, and I might say I want to readjust that. So if I do, just want to make sure this is the adjustment, this is the layer mask, making sure that I've selected that layer mask when I'm painting, and I'm selecting the adjustment part of the layer to make adjustments. So after I've made all of those adjustments, I'm happy with the image, I can at this point save it as a Photoshop file in case I get interrupted and I need to pick up another day, or if I may want to go back and adjust anything at a later point, any of these layers. So I would just go up to File, Save As, and I'm going to make sure that is a Photoshop document. That way it retains all of these layers, and I'll just put that on my desktop. Click OK. And then if I click on my Finder, go to my desktop, there it is. You'll notice that it is a very large file, 37 megabytes. So we don't always want to save Photoshop files of everything that we're doing. But if I am done with the image, with editing, I can go ahead and flatten the image. So I'm going to go up here to Layer, Flatten Image, and you'll notice all of my layers now are one, and I have my background. At this stage, I'm going to check for any dust or scratches that need to be corrected. So I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, and then hold my space bar to switch to the hand tool to move around. And then if I let go, it switches back to my tool. And so there are a couple tools that you're going to use to adjust and remove any dust or scratches. The quickest and easiest is the spot healing brush tool. You'll also notice any tool that has a little triangle in the corner, if I click and hold, it gives me other options. So you want to make sure that it's on the spot healing brush tool. The shortcut for that is J. And that's for little things like dust specks. And again, my right bracket makes the tool bigger, my left bracket makes it smaller. And I just want to remove any little dust spots that I see. You know, sometimes they can be confused for grain. You know, like these are probably part of the roof line. And I just scroll down and around. Now, here we've encountered, it's pretty good actually. Spot healing brush does a really good job. It can get confused every once in a while, or there's just situations where it doesn't really work. So here's an example. This looks like probably a water spot that maybe didn't get cleaned up. And it's noticeable, you know, I'm at 67%. If I zoomed out, you don't really see that, but it's better to be as conservative. So I can go in with my spot healing brush and get a lot of this out, and it does a really good job, even dragging it across. That was pretty good. But you can see right there it messed up a little bit. So I'm going to undo, Command Z. And so if I wanted to copy from a very specific area, I'm going to go over here to my clone stamp tool, which is S. Again, there's other options. I want to make sure I'm clone stamp. And if I hold Option on my keyboard, I get a little target. I'm going to make that tool a little bit bigger. Option, click, and now it's copied that little bit, and I'm going to then go where I want to paste it and then just click to paste it. You also have an opacity adjustment, so if you wanted to more slowly paste that in, you can. You know, and you can do this for any number of things. You know, if I wanted to copy this and paste it there, for example. So step backwards. But again, that spot healing brush tool does a really good job. The other thing you'll notice, like there's kind of this might be a scratch or something. Again, I'm going to make my tool as small as possible, and I'm going to just click and drag. You can also click, hold Shift, and then click again, and it does a straight line. So if I click here, hold Shift, click at the end of that line. Now, it does a decent job, but you can see it messed up a little bit in there. So I'm going to undo, I'm going to step backwards. I'm just going to do it in smaller increments. So right there is where it's messing up. You can try it a couple times, and then again, if it doesn't work, jump over to my clone stamp tool, find an area to copy from, and paste. So I'm just finishing checking everything for any dust. And no matter how well you clean the negative, clean the scanner, blow dust off, there's always going to be something. But all of those steps will make this a lot less cumbersome. If you don't clean those things off, you could spend an hour clicking, 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 clicking. Should only take you a couple minutes to search through. I kind of go in a grid pattern, work my way down, across the image. This is a pretty textured image, so sometimes things can hide, which can be good. Sometimes when you have very open sky or open skin tones, more dust becomes a lot more apparent. It can be more tedious. Okay. All right. So Command 0 to bring back the image. It looks good. So in order to save, if I just click Save, it's going to save over that original file. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, so that it's making a copy. And I want to make sure that I am saving it as a JPEG. Notice it will change the file extension automatically for me. I never just want to type .jpg. It might look the same, but the computer program will be confused and won't know how to open that file. So always drop down menu, change the format. I'm going to save that to my desktop. I can also rename this Final so that I know that this is the final version instead of the original scan, and then save. It's asked me what JPEG quality, always large file, maximum quality. Click OK, and it's saved. I can close this. I can close this. And so we have. So this was that Photoshop file with all the layers. That was 37 megabytes. And this is the final one. It's only 5 megabytes. So now I'm going to go back to my Google Drive. I'm going to go to Group Shooting. That was my folder. And then I'm going to click on my Finals folder. And I'm going to drop that file into that. And there we go. Okay, make sure it's there. I can save that Photoshop file if I want, but I'm happy with the image, so I don't need to. And now that I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and remove everything from the desktop because, again, it made a copy by dragging it into Google Drive. So I'm going to trash all of that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and empty my trash. And there it is. Now I can choose to keep a copy of this on a thumb drive, but your Google Drive is there. You can access it from any computer. And I'm all done.